StoryCon presents BackStory, a podcast featuring writers, readers, and their stories, hosted by best-selling author Jennifer A. Nielsen.
I remember back to the days when I was trying to get published, knowing I was ready, and yet the door to get in remained locked. At that time, I took hold of an idea, the one thing I could grasp onto for hope. It was this core belief that if only I kept trying, there would come a moment when lightning would strike for me. When it did, I had to be ready to catch it. That moment did happen for me, eventually, as it happens for all who keep working toward their goals. This is not only true for writers, it's simply a truth of life. Take Mary, for example. Mary isn't her real name, but it's close for now. About 10 years ago, Mary and her husband began discussing the idea of starting a family together. Mary had been ready for a while, but her husband was finally coming around to the idea. So the decision was made. What they most wanted was to become foster parents to a child or to some children who they could eventually adopt. Becoming foster parents is not an easy process nor a quick one. There are classes to take, backgrounds to check, financials to verify, and a great many questions to answer. For almost 8 months, Mary and her husband did all of it. And then they waited and waited and waited for their own version of lightning to strike, for their own yes. After a few months of waiting with no word from the social worker, perhaps they began wondering if that door in front of them would ever open. For you, if you are writing and still staring at that door, the one that seems eternally locked, then maybe you've wondered the same thing. You're doing all the right things to qualify yourself for that yes, and yet the door remains closed. For Mary, all of that waiting stretched into the Christmas season. Her husband asked what she wanted that year. Now, most years, the answer was the same: books. But not this time. This year, it was a far deeper wish. She wanted that foster child. Her arms ached to hold that small miracle intended for their family. As the days ticked closer to Christmas itself, it became clear that maybe next year would be that special season with children. Next year, but not this one. Every Christmas Eve, Mary and her husband traditionally hosted a big party for both sides of their family. Usually it was casual and low-key, just a chance to sit back and enjoy each other's company. But if there was a chance that Mary would have a foster child next year, then she thought this year, why not go all out on the fanciest possible holiday party? She decorated the house until it looked like a magazine cover, with immaculate attention paid to every light, every bow, every chestnut roasting on that open fire. She spent a full day in the kitchen creating a spread that would put Martha Stewart to shame, using Martha Stewart's own recipes. The guests would arrive at 5 o'clock for the holiday party of the century. Except that at 4:50, 10 minutes before arrival time, Mary's husband got a phone call from a social worker. She had twin girls, 2 months old. Did they want these girls? It was the easiest question either of them had ever answered. Yes. Of course, yes. They'd barely hung up the phone when his parents arrived, then hers, then an uncle, an aunt, a brother, a cousin, and the house began to fill, except that lightning had just struck. Mary and her husband made the announcement, and the celebration for that turned into a very different kind of holiday party. They had a nursery, which at the time was little more than a glorified storage room. They had a crib, but it wasn't assembled. They had bottles and binkies and burp rags, but none of them washed or ready. So what did the family do? They took hold of the lightning, rolling up sleeves to wash, to assemble, to load or unload, to create a space ready for not just one, but 2 small miracles. 90 minutes after the phone call, an SUV pulled into their driveway. When Mary first saw the little girls, she said, "Oh my, look at those dimples." She was already in love. If she touched her food that evening, she doesn't remember it. If anyone said much to her as they ate, what did it matter compared to the gift that had just doubled the size of their family? The baby slept all through the evening, making for a beyond perfect Christmas Eve. And then came 1 a.m. when the babies woke up, both of them. They were hungry. They needed new diapers. Mary had some formula and some newly washed bottles, but diapers? Where could they get diapers at 1 a.m. on Christmas morning? Now, I told you Mary wasn't her real name because you'd have guessed it from her first name alone, Marissa. At 1 a.m., Marissa Meyer and her husband sat on the couch, each of them with a baby in their arms, and smiled over at each other. They'd figure out how to solve those small, almost impossibly simple problems. What did they matter when everything else had changed in that single night in the best possible way? The night when lightning struck. To each of you who are still waiting for your own bolt of lightning, for your yes, or for your start, or for your restart, it will happen. Stay in the game and do everything you can to prepare yourself, because when it does happen, things start to move very quickly. Your miracle is coming. Your job, just be ready. Be ready to grab your bolt of lightning.
Thank you for listening to BackStory. If you'd like to enjoy more episodes, visit us at storycon.org/backstory. That's StoryCon.org/backstory. BackStory is brought to you by StoryCon. StoryCon is the evolution of Teen Author Boot Camp, the largest combined writing camp and fan expo in the Intermountain West. Join us on February 21st and 22nd, 2025 at the Salt Palace Convention Center in Salt Lake City, Utah. The event will feature keynote speeches and masterclasses from internationally best-selling authors like Jeff Kinney, Neil Shusterman, Shannon Hale, Marissa Meyer, and many more. Other activities include an exhibitor hall that's free to the public, writing contests, and the Operation Literacy Awards Gala. Visit storycon.org today to register. That's StoryCon.org. Hurry, masterclasses have a limited space.